Matrices and matrix operations. If you watched the previous video, you already know a little bit about working with matrices and entering them into the calculator. What I'd like to do is go through just some of the basic matrix operations here, some matrix arithmetic, and the idea of a transpose. What we're going to do is work with these 5 matrices that you see here at the top, A, B, C, D, and E. So let's begin by entering these 5 matrices into the calculator. So we start by going to the matrix menu and we press second and the x to the -1 key, or sometimes called the inverse key. Above it in the same color as your second key is the word matrix. And we get 3 menus. There's names, math, and edit. We're going to edit matrices to put entries into them, so we need to cursor over to that edit menu, which looks the same as the names menu, which can sometimes be a little confusing, but it is important that we get to the edit menu. And I'm going to choose first matrix A. Now you'll notice before I choose that, that to the right of the first 3 matrices they all say 2 by 3. And these are left over from work on the previous video. What it means is that A is a matrix that is 2 by 3 and it has entries in it. B is a 2 by 3 matrix with entries in it. And C is a 2 by 3 matrix with entries in it. The remaining matrices here, D, E, F, G, and if you continue to cursor down, for the rest are all empty at the moment. But these ones are, even though they have entries, that's not a problem for us. I can press 1 to choose matrix A. And I have a look at matrix A here in my document. You will notice that it has 3 rows and 2 columns. So it's a 3 by 2, not a 2 by 3. So I'm going to type in 3 and then enter. And then I'll type in 2 and enter. And as we're doing that, you can see the shape of the matrix change so that it has the correct number of rows and columns. Now we'll enter the elements here, these entries in the matrix. We'll do them in rows, starting from left and going to right. So we'll go -1 for the first one, and then enter, and then 2 and enter. If you enter after putting in an entry, this is what the calculator does. It automatically moves to the right unless it's to the end of a row, and then it drops down to the first entry in the next row. So now we'll have 3 and -2, 4 and 0. Alright, and that finishes our entries for matrix A. And as we can see here on the calculator screen, this looks the same as the matrix A in the document that I have here, my example document. When we're done editing a matrix, we need to quit out of editing mode. So we're going to press second and the mode key, which is always our quit, and that brings us back to the calculation screen. To enter matrix B, we're going to press second and the inverse, or x to the -1 key. We're going to move over to the edit menu, and we're going to choose option 2, which is matrix B. This is also a 3 by 2 matrix, so we're going to tell it 3 rows, enter, 2 columns, enter, and then we will put in the appropriate values for the entries. So we'll have 2, enter, 4, enter, 3, 1, -2, and 2. And when we're done, we can take a look and check, and all of our entries are correct. If an entry wasn't correct, you can use the cursor keys, the arrow keys, to move around to an incorrect entry and retype it. But this one's correct, so we're going to quit out. So we press second and the mode key for quit. Brings us again back to the calculation screen. To enter C, we need to go back into the matrix menu, so second and the inverse key. Choose 3 for matrix C. Now this is a 3 by 3 matrix. Oops. And you'll see a nice little error I made, which most people tend to make a lot, and I still do even after having used the calculator quite a bit, is when I went into the matrix menu, I was in what's called the names menu, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. I wasn't in the edit menu when I chose option 3. So let me cursor back over to the edit menu. We'll choose matrix C there. And now we're into edit mode where we can do things. So we have 3 columns, enter, 3 rows, enter. And you'll notice here's a 3 by 3 matrix. If your matrix was larger than 3 columns, you'd get some dots, ellipsis right here on the right hand side of the calculator, and you would need to cursor to the right and then back to the left to see various entries. You can make matrices pretty large, larger than we need to for this course anyway. But occasionally everything won't fit on the screen very nicely. So remember that you can use those arrow or cursor keys to move around in a matrix to see what you need to see. So here's our 3 by 3 matrix. Its entries are reading across the first row, 3, -1, 0. Reading across the second row, 2, -2, 3. And reading across the third row, 4, 6, and 2. Alright, we'll double check that, make sure everything looks correct, and it does compared to my matrix C here in my example document, so I'll quit out. Go back into the matrix menu again for matrix D. Make sure we go to that edit menu, and we'll choose 4 for matrix D. This matrix has not been entered before, so we need to tell it that it's a 3 by 3. And once the calculator knows we're dealing with a 3 by 3 matrix, it sets it up and we can enter. So reading across the first row, we're going to have 2, -2, and 4. Reading across the second row, we have 3, 6, and 2. And finally, reading across the bottom row, we have -2, 3, and 1. All right, I'm going to double check that against what I have here in my document, and all those entries look correct. So we'll quit out again since we're done editing. One matrix left to enter, a 2 by 2. So let's go back into the matrix menu, second in the inverse or x to the -1 key. Go to the edit menu. Choose option 5 in this case for matrix E. This is going to be a 2 row by 2 column matrix. First row entries are 3 and 1. Second row entries are -2 and 4. Alright, before we move on into our examples, if you haven't finished entering all of these, this would be a good place to pause the video, finish entering all your matrices, and then start it back up again to continue with the examples. I'm going to scroll down here so we can see all of the examples. Alright, and there we go. 5 examples we're going to take a look at. The last one has 2 different parts. Let's start with example 1, computing A plus B and A plus C. Now before we can do anything, we need to finish editing matrix E. So we'll press second and quit. Alright, to compute the sum of 2 matrices, in this case A and B, what we're going to do is go into the matrix menu. And we don't need to edit these matrices, we just want to work with them. So we're going to stay with the names menu. So I'm going to press 1 for matrix A, then I'm going to press plus. Go back into the matrix menu. Off of the names menu now, choose 2 for matrix B. And there I have matrix A plus matrix B. I'll press enter. And there's a result back. 1, 6, 6 and -1, 2 and 2. Alright, and the calculator does this just by adding corresponding entries. So the 1, 1 entries get added, the 1, 2 entries get added, the 2, 1 entries get added, etc. as you go through the matrix. Let's try the second part of example 1, A plus C. So we'll go into the matrix menu first, choose matrix A, then we'll say plus, then we'll go into the matrix menu again and choose matrix C. So we try to add A plus C. And when we press enter here, we get an error. And what the calculator tells us is dim mismatch. This comes up in a number of different potential error scenarios with matrices. And the dim stands for dimension. And if you remember, in order to add two matrices, they have to be exactly the same size. That is, they have to have exactly the same number of rows and exactly the same number of columns. For A and B, adding those together worked fine because they were both 3 by 2 matrices, 3 rows and 2 columns. But A and C won't add because while they both have 3 rows, A has 2 columns and C has 3 columns. And that's what the calculator is telling you here, is that it's not possible to do this. So let's just quit out of this and take that kind of as a lesson learned, and it tells us there that error. All right, I'm going to clear the screen. Example 2 asks us to compute -3 times e. Well, to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to type in -3, and then we're going to go to the matrix menu, so second and the inverse key. And I'm going to choose 5 to get matrix e up. You could put multiplication in there. You also could have said -3 times e. This is scalar multiplication, but the calculator will assume the implied multiplication. If we press enter here, we get every element of matrix E multiplied by -3. So we end up with -9, -3, 6, and -12. So not only can your calculator add, it can also do matrix multiplication. All right, now let's take the idea of addition and the corresponding idea of subtraction and scalar multiplication, and let's put them all together in example 3 here. So I'm going to clear that last example out. What we want to do is we want to take 2 times matrix A and subtract 3 times matrix B. Well, we enter that more or less like it looks here on the screen. So I'm going to take 2, then I'm going to go into the matrix menu, choose matrix A, so I get 2 times matrix A, and then I'm going to subtract 3, and then I'll go into the matrix menu again and choose matrix B. And you'll see it on the calculator. It looks almost exactly like it does in my document here, except for the fact that the calculator lets us know we're working with matrices with the letters in brackets. If we press enter, the calculator will do all of these things. And we end up with -8, -8, -3, -7, 14, and -6. You can go through and try these exercises on hand as well with these matrices and make sure that these things do work out. The calculator more or less is just a tool to do these things a little bit faster for us. All right. Clearing that out, let's look at example 4. Here we're asked to compute C plus the transpose of D. All right. So what we're going to do here is do second matrix, and we're going to choose matrix C. And to that, we want to add the transpose of D. So we're going to press second matrix. We're going to choose matrix 4, which is matrix D. And then to get the transpose, we're going to go into the matrix menu again, and we're going to go to the math menu. And you'll see that the second option here looks like a capital T kind of superscripted, just exactly like the transpose capital T looks superscripted on the D here. So we'll choose that option 2, and that's going to take matrix C and add it to the transpose of matrix D. Both are 3 by 3s. So when we press enter here, we get the matrix 5, 2, -2, 0, 4, 6, 8, 8, and 3. Again, feel free to try this on your own on paper to make sure that you understand, number one, how this happens and what the calculator is doing, and also gives you a chance to verify that the calculator is doing this correctly. This brings us to our last example. We're going to do some multiplications. So I'm going to clear out example 4. All right, and we're going to take C times D. So let's go into the matrix menu, and we'll grab matrix C, and we'll say times, back into the matrix menu, and we'll choose matrix D, and we'll press enter. In this case, we have a 3 by 3 matrix times a 3 by 3 matrix, so our result is 3 by 3. And we get the result that you see there on the screen: 3, negative 12, 10, negative 8, negative 7, 7, 22, 34, and 30. As you're learning to do matrix multiplication by hand, and please do learn how to do it by hand. It is an important skill. It is important that you understand what happens in matrix multiplication, so that if you try to multiply matrices together in the future, you multiply them in a way so that you get answers that are meaningful. It's easy, if you don't understand what's going on, to just get nonsense from this process, and that's the primary reason for making sure you understand how to do this by hand. But this is also a nice way to check your work by hand once you've done it by hand, to make sure things are correct. All right, let's reverse this and take matrix D times matrix C. So we go into the matrix menu, we choose matrix D, we decide to multiply, we go into the matrix menu, we choose matrix C. Again, these are both 3 by 3, so the multiplication does work, and the answer will be a 3 by 3. But you'll notice that we get a different answer here. And this is proof that matrix multiplication in general is not commutative. There are special instances where their commutativity does exist, but they are exceptions to this general rule. But in general, we should not expect commutativity when we multiply matrices together. All right, let's look at the second part of example 5. So I'm going to clear off my screen. Let's look at matrix A, which is a 3 by 2 matrix, times matrix E, which is a 2 by 2 matrix. All right, that multiplication will work, and we expect the result to be a 3 by 2 matrix. When I press enter, calculator does the multiplication, and there we go. There is our 3 by 2 matrix. This is the result of A times E. Now let's flip it around and see what happens if we try to take E times A. So we're going to take matrix E and multiply that by matrix A. Now we're taking a 2 by 2 and multiplying it by a 3 by 2. We shouldn't expect this to work, and indeed it doesn't. We again get that dim mismatch. It's a dimension mismatch, so we'll quit. So if you try to do something that's not possible because of the size of the matrices, your calculator will tell you that. And when you see that dim mismatch, that's your indication that there's a size problem with the matrices, whether you're trying to add, subtract, or multiply. And those are all of the operations that you should know of so far, other than the transpose operation and scalar multiplication with matrices. The idea of division we'll tackle in the next video.